Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello, and welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. This is Gary Wilson, your host. We're glad to see you again. If you haven't done so, if you could go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, 30 different channels, okay? And while you're out there online, go ahead and go visit globalinvestoragent.com. It's a new website we just put out there to showcase all the investor agents that we train. And they're in most of the states now, all across the U.S., all the way from Hawaii to Maine. And they are trained to identify, analyze, and negotiate on and off market properties, which is a big deal for us investors. And these are not your traditional agents. They don't care about the carpet and the chandeliers. What they care about is your bottom line. And they're good at it too. They have access to every single parcel in the country. So have at that, take a look at it. And if you are an agent, definitely check it out, because this could help you build out your business model and get ready for this market turn. So in any case, without further ado, I want to introduce you to Sean Orourke. So Sean, first off, thanks, man, for coming on board here today. We appreciate you taking your valuable time to do this.
Hey, man, I really appreciate you allowing me to be on.
No worries. If you wouldn't mind, give everybody a little bit of background first on where you are and how you got there, and then we can jump into some, give them some golden nuggets they can use and maybe some examples.
Yeah, absolutely. Where I'm at, I'm a full-time investor, so that's generally buy a lot of single-family property. We also buy commercial property, so larger multifamily deals, mobile home parks, RV parks. I also own many storages. So I'm really divided in different types of real estate, different types of real estate portfolio. I started 3.5 years ago. So from 3.5 years ago, I had no idea how to buy real estate. I was basically lost on the whole transactional thing and started doing some research online. I was broke. I was a production manager at a plant. My money was set to my paycheck, and I lived day to day. And I found out about wholesaling, and wholesale is what really kickstarted the whole real estate career, because what happened was wholesaling generated an avenue that created cash flow for me. I worked hard for it, but it did cash flow for me to be able to then purchase my first single family house. Mm-hmm. And so from there to now, I'm somewhere around $13 million in assets in about 3.5 years, investing. So a lot of flips currently now. I sell a ton of properties to large corporate buyers, and then we do a lot of buy and hold. Nice.
Okay. Now, I know we were speaking earlier, you're originally from Florida, Central Florida, Orlando, Florida. Now you're up in the beautiful state of Mississippi. And I've been there before too. I taught down in forget the name of the town, right on the Gulf Shores, Mississippi.
Gulf Shores. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome place. Has a good pizza too, by the way. But if you wouldn't mind, fill us in a little bit about the area, and I'm going to guess you're not just investing in your area. If you could talk a little bit about that, but let's just first start with where you are in Mississippi. Because that'll give people some context. Like most of us, including me, came from another job. I started with another corporate job and ended up really just hating it. I just didn't like it at all. I was not born to be sitting at a desk. And investing was the key to the secret to freedom.
That's exactly right. So I'm in an area called Tupelo. Population's 44,000. So it's a small little town in Mississippi. It's about 2 hours south of Memphis. There's people ask all the time, how in the world are you doing larger transactions and larger volume in a population like that? But realistic right now is in my is the largest wealth transfer that we're going to see in the state. And the reason I say is because you're going to have the older baby boomers, and what I'm realizing in all of this, you have the older baby boomers that have made really good money and acquired properties, but they're getting so old now, they don't want to deal with it anymore. So what I'm capitalizing on is the fact that they've owned that property now for many years. They've depreciated that property down, and if they sell it, they're going to have depreciation recapture, all of the mess that comes with selling property now that you've owned and depreciated all out. So I love finance deals or doing creative things, but kind of getting off course a little bit. In our generation, where we're at currently, we're going to see those properties transition, and I'm seeing it now. And so that's how we're able to acquire properties, even in a small population, at a fast pace, as a lot of the baby boomers are kind of keying out of there. But yeah, we do transactions in multiple different markets. We're not, to do them as far as flips go in the fast cash, we have to debt and markets. We can't do 150, 200 deals a year in a 4,000 population market.
Right. Yeah. Well, Tupelo's, I've been through there. Of course, there's a great song called Tupelo Honey from Van Morrison. Everybody's mostly familiar with that song, and that's what made the town, kind of famous. But Mississippi itself is, for everybody listening here, it's one of those states that right now, not a lot of people are paying attention to it, and they will eventually. But you see what's happening in, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, even Tennessee. Most of the investable dollars right now are coming from the cold northern states, New York, all the way to Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and all around there, Illinois, and coming down to these southern states. Okay.
Yeah.
So the really smart money always is leading the charge. You want to be in the front of it, and you got somebody like Sean already there, feet on the ground, doing this, So let's talk about if we can get a little bit granular, if you don't mind, share a little bit about what it is you're doing at the on the ground, feet on the ground, like a strategy, your favorite strategy for identifying properties or negotiating or even deal structuring, something like that. Because I want people to see that, you came from a background where you're working for a factory. I came from a background I was involved with computers, and either one of us was involved in real estate. And yet look at us now, So it sometimes just comes down to one or two or three golden little nuggets of, a technique or method that if you just focus on and develop and master, you can do exactly the same thing Sean's doing, guys. So Sean, if you don't mind, you don't have to share any names and things like that, to protect the innocent, so to speak. But maybe an example of your first property and how you structured it, the feet on the ground kind of stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. So, to kind of break my business down first, I'll kind of give you an idea of how we ultimately, in my opinion, you don't have a deal, you have nothing, right? So you have to find the deals. The way I find my deals is I built out Podio systems, a CRM, customer management system. And you don't have to do this to start with, but once you start really getting volume, you really need something to keep you in line. And so what I did is I built out a CRM through Podio, and I have VAs overseas, and all they do all along for $5 an hour is they cold call. Hey, would you like to sell your house? Hey, would you like your house? Apartment or whatever. We have two divisions, right? We have a family division, we have a multifamily division, and that's all they do is they cold call and they text, and those leads will come into my CRM, and then I have an acquisitions team in house, but it wasn't me when I first started. They're calling now from lead saying, hey, I see that you wanted to sell us. Can you give me some information about it? And we lock those things up over the phone. We don't walk the properties initially. We get them locked up that you have the asset in control. Once you have it in control, then you can do what you want to with it. Now, if you're a real estate agent, same thing, right? Same kind of concept, consistency and consistently talking to people, telling them what you do, and then getting that contract. Same thing with the real estate agents. And that's key to the business right now, what we do. So as we get granular, let's say I found, like, for instance, we got a property. It was a 6-unit condominium on Pickwick Lake, which is a tourist area. People really like that area. It was listed online for 2.8 million, 2.85 million. Right? The owner of that property owned property free and clear. He's an older guy. Again, goes back to the baby boom generation, and so he's only built it. And what we did is I sat down with him a couple of weeks ago, and we negotiated out a long-term carry. Okay, so he was not comfortable with listing the purchase price. So 2.85 million was the purchase price. There's no negotiating the price, but we hit the terms where we needed it. So what I did is I said, look, I need that property monthly payment to be around $10,000, okay, a month. And he couldn't figure out how we could get there. How could we there? So what we negotiated was this: the realtor that was also the realtor, they have to get their money. So we negotiated a 10% down payment. So $285,000 on a down payment. And then I told him what I would like to do is a 38.6 actually year owner finance at a 2% interest rate on a 10-year balloon.
Okay.
So what that's going to do is in 10 years, as I make those payments and I bring down that, when it's time to go to the bank to refinance it, the numbers make sense on the right. So what I did is I fixed his problem, though, because his problem was he had a property that's costing him money because he's an Airbnb in it, like I plan to do. He wasn't doing anything but letting people live in it, friends, family, and every once in a while he might rent it for a tenant. But what he wanted was he didn't need the cash. He still wanted residual income, but he also didn't want to take a hit, a large hit straight off that from selling it outright. And he wasn't willing to negotiate price. So because he wasn't willing to negotiate price, you have two things: you either have price or you have terms. And you've got to either win on one or the other, right? Yeah. So if they're willing, I'll stretch. I'll shoot. I would $1 million for a house that's only worth $1,000 if I could get my terms where I'm cash flowing it. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of the mindset that I have, and I had in that was I just had to get the terms to where I need them so that my monthly payment made sense. So when I Airbnb still cash flow it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. There's a famous saying. This goes back to probably the 1950s. What's interesting is, historically speaking, a lot of the people teaching this stuff today are using methodologies that were developed back in the 70s and 80s when interest rates are going through the roof, and a lot of them are financing, and people are doing a lot more land contracts. Where land contracts historically were just for land, and then they started using them for improved land with houses on them. Well, that actually came out back in the 1950s. Those guys, yeah. And some of you even go back hundreds of thousands of years. So it's interesting. Whenever the market starts turning, you see all the creative stuff come back in vogue again. That's how you know you're at the end of a market, when we start getting real creative again. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think it sheds a lot of light on things for people to show them. You don't just have to do the traditional banking model where you put down 5, 10, 20, 25% and get a note for the remainder for a period of years. You can mix and commingle different strategies, all kinds of things you can do,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll get into the weeds on another one too. This kind of goes back to exactly why I started this whole process. So my wife is a children's mentor. She has her own ministry. And really, I was in her shadow, and I wanted my own ministry. So when I first started real estate, I wanted to figure out how I help people. And so our motto in business is care about people, not about profit. Mm-hmm. And what happened to me one time, I was a lady, and her grandson was in the hospital in ICU. She came up and made up at the house. But I cared about that, where we were standing in the living room, cobweb infested, vacant house, praying for her grandson because we didn't really know what was going to happen at the time. He was in a diabetic coma. And ended up, all that being said, I ended up buying her house. I wholesaled it actually. So I wholesaled it, made $5,000, but she came back to me and she said, Sean, she said, got this land. She said, I don't really know what to do with it. Do you buy land? And I said, yeah, I do. Every once in a while, Miss Ruff, I do. He said, okay, well, I would love to sell you this piece of property. It was 23 2 acres of land. And I said, yes, ma'am, how much do you want for it? Well, she said, come meet me. So I went at her, and it was her birthday. And so we had the birthday party. I was there, enjoyed the time, brought my family, the whole snap, and this was the third time I've ever met her, but she wanted me to come because I'd made a relationship with her because I cared about her. And she had that land and she handed me a tax bill. The tax bill was for like $6,700. I was like, what's Miss Ruff? She said, well, this is what I want. And I was, are you sure? This is 23 acres. She said, yes, honey. She said, the highway's done come through and pay the money for it. She's going to be a blessing to you. So she sold me 23 acres for $6,700, cost me $72 after title and everything. I sold 18 acres for $50,000. I still own their land right now. Now it's worth about $1,000 on the other side. Those kind of things are really what make us successful in life and in business is caring about other people. Don't go tied up in yourself and worry about how much money you're make because if you care about them, you'll make money.
Yep, I agree. One of my favorite sayings is from Zig Ziglar, who said, "If you just simply help enough other people get what they want, you'll be able to get plenty of what you want." And that one can be interchanged with the word need. And it's an age-old lesson. I mean, it goes back to the dawn of time, and it's even scriptural. And it's a tough thing for people to reconcile with when you're in business because we're so profit driven, and Wall Street and all the publications, and it's like ends up people make decisions based purely on profit. And the funny thing is if you make it based on people, the profit will come.
That's it.
And, it's a leap of faith, and that's faith is a hard thing to define for people that don't have it. If you don't have it, how do you explain that to somebody? You're like you're going out on a limb. You're risking, the fact that you may not get compensated. But when you do it, willingly and knowingly, really just serving somebody else, usually things will come back in your favor. So you never know. It could be completely from left field, Yeah.
That land was from left field. I never would have thought that,
Yep. So let's branch out a little bit now. So you've started off in Tupelo, and now have you branched out in other parts of the South or any other places of the country? And what kind of areas and what kind of inventory? Like, did you get into other things like strip malls and stores and things like that? Kind of fill us in. Maybe let's go geographic first, and then we can get into the other products.
Sure. Yeah. So geographically, we're in the southeast. So we're Knoxville, Nashville, North Carolina, South Carolina, Greensboro, and Raleigh. We're in Memphis because this is so close, but also in Atlanta. Atlanta's a good market right now. So yes, we're in multiple markets, but we are acquiring those markets are a little bit higher end real estate. So anything that's $100,000 up to about $450,000 piece of real estate. Mm-hmm. And everything we're doing in those markets is going to be single family.
We'll be right back with the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast after I invite you to Monday Night Live. Every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, I teach a class without fail for you on subjects ranging from flipping to buying rentals, managing rentals, wholesaling, commercial, creative purchasing techniques, analyzing properties, identifying properties, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of subjects. And if you are a licensee, if you have a real estate license, you should definitely tap in, because there are a lot of investor agents also in the class. Many of them are on the global investor agent team. So you can learn from them, as well as from me, how to actually work with investors correctly and profitably. All right, we'll see you Monday night. The link is in the show notes. Go ahead and register. We'll get right to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. Okay, awesome. All right, now, how did you determine those areas? Are you using like a research tool or some publication that says, hey, here's the demographics, here's the crime reports, here's the average increase in home prices, things like that? That using tools like that to determine where you're going to go?
No, I'm chasing money. So yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm selling. What I will do is I will get these houses, lock them up on contract, take them down, and then I'm selling them to large institutionals. Okay, and so I key in. Now I have 10 or 12 various institutional buyers, and I key in what major markets they're buying, and I go after those markets. So that's really what tells me what I need to go after, the criteria I need to go after, because all a long-term holds for me personally, it's a whole lot easier for me to manage it local, you know, but now it's not to say I won't own this further out, but a whole lot more select. And the biggest issue that I find is management companies. You have to manage the management company properties to make your money, you know, because they'll live if you're not careful.
Yeah, you're right there. We discovered over the years, and I used to own a property management company because of that, the fact that most of them just, quite frankly, stunk. You know, so we created our own, and now we're getting ready to launch a national network of independent property management companies that you know, we help coach and train and all that, and to basically fill that need, because it is a great need out there. When for everybody listening, when you start building a portfolio, you'll find out you definitely want and need good management, because if you do it yourself, you might be able to do it for a short period of time, but all of a sudden it'll consume you, and now you're no longer the investor making capital gains and a profit. You now have a job.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
A job. You got to let somebody else do that.
Exactly. Yep, exactly right. We did the same thing. My business partners actually built out their management company, and they manage all of our stuff. Awesome. It's just easy for us to do that when we saw more money doing it that way. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Now let's talk about the product. By product, I mean the type of inventory you've got. You know, broadly speaking, you've got commercial, retail, office space, industrial, storage, and multifamily. So within those sectors, there's subsectors. Like medical and entertainment, things like that. So let's talk about some of those different subsectors that you've discovered or starting to get into. Anything like, what's the first one that pops in your mind that's been a real winner for you?
Yeah. So it's going to be mini storage. That's a really good one. It's high man, but there's a lot of mom and pop mini storage owners right now, because a lot of people got into mini storage for some crazy reason back in the 90s. And what I'm finding is in a recession, mini storages stay consistent. And I think the reason they do that is because even if someone loses their house, they own the stuff inside it. So they're going to want to store it somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of it. But what I'm doing currently is I'm doing some really cool creative stuff. And this maybe help some of your listeners think outside the box a little bit. So with the pandemic, everything that's happened, you do see a lot more commercial buildings that kind of fell. Businesses went out of business. Now you have commercial buildings just sitting there. If they're large open-based buildings, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 square foot, and they're just sitting there, but they're in optimal locations. We bought old grocery store, and we're converting it into a climate controlled mini storage because it already has the infrastructure. And so that's actually opening. I think it's opening next or the week after, in a prime location. There's any client there, and so thinking creatively and a little bit outside the box, because it's pretty easy to convert the internals and just build out the inside of the climate of the mini storages. it's going to generate really good revenue. So that's a sector, and I like diversification. The other one that really sticks out to me are going to be RV and boat storage, because it's again that's a limit. That's limited. A lot of times you'll have a lot in certain areas, like where there's a big boating community, or a big camping community, but the people don't live there. They live in other areas, and so they store their RV and boat. So that's a really good sector as well to be in.
Yeah, I agree. I remember when that started back in the '90s, it was a major boom. So
yeah.
And now what's interesting is, if you think about it, back in the probably early to late 2000s, businesses that used to typically be cash based, like laundromats and car washes, all of a sudden converted to digital, electronic. And then that took off, and now we're seeing a big demand for car washes everywhere. Crazy, but that's just what's happening. And before that, it was the laundromats. And when it's completely electronic like that, boy, it's so much easier. You don't have people. We heard horror stories of people coming in with sledgehammers and bashing off the coin box and running with the coin box for the laundromats. And here you don't have that issue. It's all electronic. And car washes, of course, there's a car wash. To me, probably depends on where you are, but for the most part, they're so automated now. You don't even have people there working. Employees, it's all completely automated. So I don't know if I'm looking at those myself. But okay, so how about there's mini storage? Let's talk about a little bit about timing. Most people agree we're this bubble is about ready to burst. We're at or near the top of the market. You got inflation running rampant, interest rates just jumping up, and those other, of course, other factors like China, digital currency, and then of course Ukraine. I mean, it's just no economy can stand all that forever. We're hanging in there. But what are your thoughts on timing? And you got started about 3.5 years ago, and of course you've seen a lot of this stuff. The people outbidding each other and just nuts, Yeah. But what can you tell people about timing, about getting in and getting out, and should we even do that, or how does timing affect your strategy? I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, I love this question. I really do. And here's the reason why. I think sometimes people. So something's going to happen with the market. We have no idea what's going to happen. I know at this point, the market cannot sustain what it's doing right now because housing costs are astronomical. Mm-hmm. Part of that, though, is because of limited inventory, because builders haven't built enough. So because of that, the inventory is driving the cost. So here's my thought, and I'm just kind of throwing it out there. People can kind of take it for what it's worth, right? Mm-hmm. We have a mass immigration issue coming on right now. So the country influx of people that are coming in, that is only creating more limited inventory on the market. So I believe for the next couple of years, even if there's a crash, even if the market, even if it can't sustain, next couple of years, we're still going to see increased rents. In the past few years, I believe we've seen 25% increase in rent rate. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be there, but it's going to be close. And I think it's going to continue because the limited amount of housing in the market. So my opinion is for at least in 2 years, you need to be doing everything you can. And two reasons why. Number one, inflation is through the roof. It's only going to continue. I don't see how it's going to stop. They can raise interest rates, but it's only going to continue to crash the market. It makes no sense why they're doing that at this point. But so inflation is going to increase, which makes our dollar that's in the bank continue to go down. So if you have your money asset, that's going to appreciate over time, because no matter what, if you look at the market in a long-term mindset, assets, i.e. real estate, has appreciated. And so it's going to continue to appreciate. But if you put your money in it now, because if you don't, you're going to lose value every day that this appreciation this inflation continues. So, and I don't see how rental rates are not going to continue to go up for the next 2 years. I think at a certain point they'll plateau. They have to, because the amount of pay that people are bringing to their household versus the expenses at some point, people just can't survive anymore. But if you noticed, I don't know if you guys have seen what I've seen here in Mississippi. They're paying $20 an hour to work at like a fast food restaurant because people need employees so bad. Right. If they're increasing job wages that high, their cost of living can go up or their rent rate can go up as they live, right? You're still on the same level. If our dollar is only, if $100 or $1 bought a now, in 10 years, it's dollars to buy a Coke, but your pay rate went up to cover that $10. You still live the same lifestyle. You just have more cash per se.
Yeah. That's interesting perspective. And I appreciate it. We were having this discussion recently too on my team about, how do we think this correction is going to shake out? And of course, the last correction was pretty dramatic. And housing led that one. Housing, probably the mortgage business, but essentially housing led that recession. Normally, real estate is one of the factors in a recession that's affected by the recession. But the fundamentals never change though. It's usually inflation, interest rates going up because of inflation, and supply and demand out of balance. And we have all those things right now. Then you add in a war and the China going to be surpassing the U.S. as far as the largest economy, and then now all of a sudden the U.S. dollar is not going to be the world's reserve; it'll be the Chinese yen. Then you add digital currency on top of that. It's like, man, it's just like throwing the deck of cards up in the air. So
that's it. And I don't think anybody knows anything. And the country in whole, the United States in a whole is just not going in the right direction right now. Yeah. All the way to the mindset, interaction with people. I mean, I've got a woman that works here with us, and I've got a bunch of law, officers that are friends of mine. I love those guys, but they get beat up right now. What in the heck is going on? And why is that mindset even happening?
Right.
And so that's scary too. I mean, the market's just in general is crazy, and I don't think anybody knows. The only we can base off of. Is what historical data shows as far as how appreciation and rate continues to go. And so I don't think, as long as you're smart about how you're buying, how you're acquiring, don't go outside your buy box. Don't, if you have a buy box and you say, look, I want to buy 7 cents on the dollar, stay in that buy box. Don't allow your emotion to inflate your price because you have to buy a piece of property.
Right. Yep, I agree. Hey, I know we're getting close on timer, so I probably should try to wrap things up. But what can you tell people as far as if anybody wants to speak with you, invest with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you or do some digging on the road?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook or social media platforms. So I'm Sean Orourke on Facebook. Bearded_investor on Instagram. I post every day. I try to stay consistent on that. I also have a website. It's highperformanceedu.com. So each people that don't really know how to start in real estate, I teach them how to start finding deals. And then it also shows you either wholesale or whatever, but the key is finding deals and then negotiation. So I love negotiation. I believe negotiation is a huge factor in all of our communication type of sales. And so I like teaching people about that. And so that's highperformanceedu.com. And then you can shout to me. You can email me, at Sean at exits.com. Or reach out to me on social media platforms, and I like to help people.
Okay. Well, so everybody, if you're driving, don't write this down, but just remember this. It's Sean Orourke, SEAN, first name, Orourke, O'Rourke. Okay. So he, like me, he's a good old Irishman. You always do well if you hang around an Irishman. Especially on March 17th. But the website is highperformanceedu.com. Highperformanceedu.com. And while you're out there, go ahead and check that out, and then go to globalinvestoragent.com. And if you're an agent, there's a box you can click on to check out more about the team. It's a national team of investor agents, and this is what we do. And if you're an investor, grab yourself one of those investor agents, because they are trained to work with us and serve us. So in any case, everybody here, I really appreciate your time, Sean, your time and your energy, and the listeners, your time, energy. And if you could please definitely leave a review for Sean's podcast interview here. You just go on there, takes about 60 seconds, and reviews are the currency of podcasts. We work to give these to you, and you don't have to pay a dime for them. You just listen. So all we ask is instead of spending your dollar, spend your time to give a review. That's the currency that we use to keep things going. So I appreciate everyone. Yep. Oh, sorry. One more thing. Yeah.
No, I was going to say I love it. And then if any realtors have any deals that they want to dispose of, like again, I'm actively buying. Reach out to me on social media, and we're actively looking for properties all over the Southeast.
Excellent. Yeah, we got them out there for you from Hawaii to Maine, and most of the coastal and southern states, and a few in the middle there too. Okay, everyone, you guys take care of yourselves. We'll see you on the next podcast. In the meantime, take care and God bless.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.